What's going on, everyone? This week's episode of Ningen and Fushin was pretty damn good, actually. We do have some of the lackluster animation for the fight scenes, as we have had for the last, 3 episodes. However, the plot, and we get a little bit more characters, and just the general sense of it was pretty good this episode. I mean, I did prefer the last episode over this one. But with an action adventure fantasy, I think, in my opinion, usually the first half of the series is obviously setting things up and building to that ultimate climax, which is usually the last 4 episodes. So, with it only being a third of the way through, I guess I can't gripe about it. It's doing pretty good, and I mean, hey, it's not the best thing in the world, but damn, is it great. So this episode this week, we pretty much we sorry about that. We start off where the last episode ended off. So we're in the office at the guild, kind of just like bartering and learning the things that we need to know about this quest. Like, are we gonna get paid? Or how much are we gonna get paid? No matter what the condition of the sword is, are we going to get paid? Just things like essentially we want to get paid. And that's understandable because this whole group pretty much came together to be able to do their hobbies, but not have everybody else involved with them, at the same time be a great bond. So they want to make sure they're not getting screwed out of this. So after we leave there, we see a scene right off the frickin' bat with them kind of fighting this like stone golem thing. And it's mostly Kuran from what I can tell, because she does this like her natural like dragon flame shot on top of a blade spin, and that thing goes down. While we're in this adventure, we find out kind of along the lines that they did get a map from the guild master to kind of guide them through this tunnel dungeon-esque area. And we see this camera that's kind of spying on them, in this older man voice, telling them that, like, saying these things out loud, kind of mentally, like, you guys are about to get into trouble now. Even though we kind of can figure out, obviously something's going to go a little different while they're walking down the hallways, because they do see this like dead end with a green light, and come to find out that they're kind of like supposed to follow to a dead end with like a red light. So they're kind of going somewhere that is not on the map, which by the end of this episode you kind of figure out, but I know for a fact like the guildmaster intended for this to happen. However, they kind of play it off like that's not the case. But that adds to the mystery, right? So they get to this corridor, and it's got all these like glass boxes in there, but in the center of it is the blade that they're looking for. And before anybody, Nick's kind of like taking the lead and just not listening as much as the other ones are, because he's kind of got the experience. But Tiana does this detect magic spell, which obviously see if there's anything going on in this room. And there doesn't really seem to be, from what they can tell, until they get to the blade and they're getting ready to pick it up. And they do this nice pan shot that kind of reminds me of like your general fantasy group pan shot, almost like a Lord of the Rings vibe. And there's a voice coming out from it, which they come to find out that it's the sword itself. The sword itself is sentient, and it is talking to them about how, this is what you guys need to do to get out of here. And they're just like, look, man, we just want you for money, which is pretty much exactly the truth of the whole matter. And of course, Zem are nice guys. Like, let's give it a shot. Let's see what he has to say. Like, oh, we just want this thing for the money. And you kind of come to find out that the blade itself was made by like the Angelics, and that it has this really awesome superpower, even though it's one of those blades that uses a human's or any creature's mana to actually form the blade. But that's all they really know about it, so they don't think it's anything too special. But they pick up the blade, and the Guardian comes through, which happens to be a amalgam golem, and it seems to be almost like a metallic golem that they tried using magic on it, and that didn't seem to work. Tiana's ice beams weren't working. Nick tried slashing it. Every time he tries slashing it, it ends up going back with itself. So, magic and physical attacks are kind of fucked at this point. So the blade starts talking to Nick, and he's like, okay. He just kind of like senses that he has the closest bond with Kuran. which was leading up from the necklace and that whole situation, which is really kind of cool throwback that and the Blade actually knows that. So he tells him to say Union and something cool will happen. However, it ends up not working as well as the Blade hoped it would. So Nick's like trying to kill this damn thing, and the thing throws him, just chucks him across the room into this like hole in the ground where the golem actually came from. So while that's going all down, Tiana's actually just casting ice beams at this thing, trying to slow it down so that Kuran can go and check on Nick and get his ass out of there so they can escape. Even though we do know at this point that the only way they can escape, I think mostly just Nick knows because the Blade tells him, but the only way they can escape is actually for Nick, or any of them I guess, to defeat this golem. So Kuran goes down there and he's with the Blade. He's buried under rubble. And he just tells her, don't worry about me, save everybody else. This is what the thing about our group was, is like, we're the survivors, we need to survive. But Kuran's, she's saving him, and that's really cool to know that they've built a bond that well. And he's pretty much telling her, that he's sorry for breaking the pendant. And she finally comes out to tell him that, I got that from my old leader, and I wanted to throw it away because I didn't want to think that they betrayed me. But in reality, she knows that they betrayed them, and the fact that Nick did that for her was almost a godsend. So that was pretty neat. And the sword realizes that the bond at this point is like really at its peak now. So he says, to say Union again with a green glow coming from him. And when that happens, we see Zem and Tiana pretty much about ready to give up, because she tells him, look, save your healing spells for Nick when he gets out. We're going to go on the Blades of Glory. And right at that moment, we see something pop out and slice the golem in half. And it so happens to be the Blade, and you can tell it's a fusion of Nick and Kuran. Like, they fuse together. It's got Nick's body style, but it has Kuran's horns and arms. But it is really badass, just the way it looks. And so we find out that the golem actually has this like center core orb that needs to be destroyed, and it can move in its body at any time. So the fused form ends up taking it on with these green flames coming out of it, and it's pretty cool looking, and takes down the golem. Hopefully we get to see more of that, because I do think that was a really cool thing, and obviously I hope it's not too OP, because I know, like, if depending on the Union, it could fuse with anybody in the group. So I know they're probably going to, the farther the show goes, obviously have more different, I don't want to say techniques, but different fusion techniques, I guess, going along. So after that, we go to the guild again, and they bring the sword, and they're like, oh, it's not anything too impressive, it's not exactly what we thought it was. And we kind of get the gist that obviously they give him the fake sword, or a fake sword, and they're kind of playing along with it, until in the background we hear this kid talking about, yeah, that sword's useless, I could do better than that. And the guild master's like, oh, did you guys get a new party member? Who the heck is that? And the party member says its name is Kazuna, which actually means, bonds, or translates more or less to bonds in Japanese, so it's kind of sus. But the guild master gives them the cash and they leave. And like I said earlier, I think that was the plan for the guild master in the first place for these guys, but it's hard to say at this point. So after that, they're all kind of walking together and talking amongst themselves, and they get to I want to say it's Tiana's room, because that seems where they usually meet up and do their stuff. They all divvied their cash out, and at this point they're all, excited, because the last money they've made pretty much went to bills and just keeping a place over their heads. So they're all like, gonna go do their thing, and Nick's like, well, I'm gonna go see an idol concert, and the sword's like, oh, can I go? Because now it's taking a boy for him, and he's like, we don't partake in each other's hobbies unless you want to be a sword the whole time. And so he says no, and everybody else leaves except for Tiana, obviously. And she's like, well, I'm going to the horse races later if you want to come with me. And he's like, well, isn't that against the rules? She's like, well, as long as you don't judge me for fucking losing all my money, it's fine. So he jumps with her, and they're kind of walking along, and she's making small talk with him about the fact that he's been there for thousands of years waiting for them. And so she gives him a little head pat, and he's like, don't treat me like a freaking kid, even though he clearly looks like a kid in this form. And Right after that, we get to see the narrator talking again, pretty much saying how this is when the adventure starts, and also find out that the narrator this whole time at the end has been the sword the whole time. So that's kind of a little neat thing. So I think right after this episode's really going to take off and pick up for their adventures and everything. So I'm pretty excited for that. Like I said beforehand, this wasn't the most exciting episode, but it did have a new character to add to the roster, and we got to see a cool fusion with some action scenes. So overall, it was a pretty solid episode, and I'm not going to complain about it. So yeah. With that being said, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. If you stayed this long, please give it a like. And if not, thanks for staying this long. Let me know, guys, know what you think in the comments about this episode. I think it was pretty solid, but hey, that's just me. If you're feeling generous, give me a sub. And with that being said, I think I'm going to end this video and see you all in the next one. So this has been Squids, and I will talk to you all later. Peace.